Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I wanted to take a quick look at the Star Wars Book of Days. Now, what on earth is that? Well, it's basically a calendar without any years. And so you can use it sort of like a journal, a diary, a traditional calendar. It's got the months and the days, but no years. So you could, in theory, use it now, next year, 10 years from now. I've never used it because it's more important to me than just a calendar or a journal or diary. It's much more important for the art that it contains. And here, obviously, on the cover, you can see Heir to the Empire, and I'll flip through briefly so you can get a sense of some of the other EU art that this shared. It's published in 1994 by Antioch. Now, Antioch was a very important licensee of Star Wars ephemera back during this period of time. You've seen tons of their bookmarks and calendars and journals and other things. What was unique about them amongst a lot of licensees that is, instead of just exploiting overused sort of images from the films, they heavily drew on EU art, and it's one reason why very nostalgic and also very important for someone's sort of complete EU collection, to the extent you're interested in just seeing more of those beautiful EU images. On the back here, there's an important appreciation and insight from Antioch about what makes this stuff so important to Star Wars, and it sort of talks about in terms of continuing the success of the films, right? There are books and comics and video games, all notable for, in addition to continuing the story, their exciting cover art and package design. So again, on the cover here, obviously, it's Heir to the Empire, which is definitely something that should probably draw anyone's attention to this. But what's really neat inside is that it sort of continues the fun. At this point in 1994, there's only so much EU art to share, but they do a good job of doing it. And I'll give you just sort of a brief tour of what's in here. Obviously, kicking things off with sort of the full back and front cover of the hardcover edition of Courtship of Princess Leia. And what I think is so interesting about this is the chance to see it like this all at once, right? Rather than you having to take your dust jacket off and flatten it out, you get to kind of see it all here. And I think that's just a really neat way of getting to see this stuff the way that the artist ultimately really intended it to be seen. We move right from the books into video games with the cover art from Rebel Assault. Again, so neat without any of the text, right? One of the reasons why I so adore promo posters and in-store promo flyers and whatnot is that it occasionally gives you a glimpse without any text of the cover art, precisely the way the artist originally intended. And I just so desperately wish and lament that Lucasfilm and other licensees didn't do more to give us this back in the day. You had to turn to things like this to get it in an admittedly smaller form, but it, still a, visually sort of attractive one. Sometimes I see folks online ask about access to any known sort of high-res images of, say, book covers both front and back, and I often point them to this book itself. I say maybe pick up the Book of Days if you can track one down, and take photos of these high-res scans, crop them, and then do with them what you want. Obviously here, Dark Empire. This is, at the time would have been, obscure to some fans, but, early sort of production sketches that were later sort of included in the Monsters and Aliens guide from George Lucas, which is unfortunately sort of a neglected reference guide that includes stuff beyond Star Wars, but it all pertains to Lucas's creations, and there's definitely some Star Wars related things there, so it's worth having for your sort of complete collection. Here's some images of Bespin, and it notes at the bottom, again, this is 1994, it notes that this art is from an Illustrated Planet book to be published in Bantam in 1995. So again, on the horizon are a number of things like the Kevin Anderson Illustrated Guide, in addition to sort of the first wave of the Essential Guide reference books. Here's some more comic art, Dark Empire, by the great Dorman and others. Another video game a book, another video game cover art, in this case X-Wing. I actually have this as an in-store promo poster about 2 foot by 3 foot, which I'll show in a later video. But again, what a great thing for folks early in the EU, before the the widespread use of the World Wide Web. If you were just in the books, you got a glimpse of the comics and the games. If you were just into the games, you got to see the books and the comics, and so on and so forth. More production art contained in the Monsters and Aliens guide. Beautiful front and back cover of Truce of Bakura. It's really interesting to see Obi-Wan there. I think folks tend to think just of the handshake and the big three when you think of this book, but how interesting to sort of, see other stuff happening on the back. And it's interesting to see it in this context, to see Obi-Wan there as the Force Ghost rather than, spoiler alert, Anakin, who appears obviously in a brief scene, right, as a Force Ghost to effectively come and connect and apologize to Leia. Would have been neat if we'd seen that Force Ghost in the back, although that would have been problematic for a variety of reasons, particularly when it got retconned later in the special editions that that Force Ghost Anakin is the young Anakin and not the Sebastian Shaw version. But again, really beautiful to see the front and the back all in one. Again, more art to be seen in future Bantam Essential Guides. Another video game artwork here from the Super Nintendo Star Wars box. More, at this time, fairly unseen art. More comic art from Dark Empire, of course. Some more art to be seen in the Bantam guides in 1995, and I think there's maybe one or two more, some production art from the great Ralph McQuarrie, and one more here, just some more production sketches of a Grimoire Guard by Joe Johnston. So yeah, that's the Antioch Star Wars Book of Days. Still, I think, pretty easy to track down, as are most of Antioch's products. Again, really fun bookmarks that heavily draw from the EU. Calendars, the same thing, right? And including this Book of Days things here. What's neat about this too in particular is there are definitely folks out there who just collect Heir of the Empire stuff, and as far as that goes, this is absolutely an essential part of that collection. Again, in terms of your broader EU collection, does this really matter? No. Does it tell you anything about the EU that you don't already know? No. But if, like me, you partially love the EU for nostalgic reasons involving these covers and things like that, then it's definitely sort of a fun thing to pick up.